Welcome to the Alive Loren Podcast, and the place of celebrating juicy, soulful, whole, full-bodied, open-hearted, living, loving, being, embracing of everything that is this adventuring of life. Yo. I have so much deliciousness in so many different directions. So I'm not quite sure how this is all going to come together, but let's see. So the chapter that we finished in our group recently was about oh my God, now I can't remember the title. It's about this open heart. Give me a second. I've got it. The secrets of the spiritual heart. So a lot of stuff's like, as we've been journeying through this idea of open-heartedness, this idea of like a bit of dissonance of like, what does this actually mean? Like an open heart? Is it so vulnerable and tender that it's just open to being completely like trampled on and stood on and walked all over? And it's just so interesting because something came out of our last session at the end, that the subtlety and these nuances of open-hearted living is not about being in like situations of like abusive situations or being trodden on or being, it's more about being open to all of life's experiences and being open to the flow and the movement. And the idea of like, if you've got a piano with all those keys, do you just want to have one octave of notes to play with? Or are you open to playing the entire keyboard? So, which means then you go into the really deep, heavy notes and the really light, high-pitched notes. So it's more that, it's an openness to the flow and the experience of all of life, not in terms of often how like softness or openness sometimes in a Western perspective can be interpreted as like someone's being taken advantage of, but more this idea of like a strength and a discernment in the heart, because someone in our group at the end, it was so beautiful. Also, I've got to try find it now, because I loved it so much, that a discernment and to be strong enough to be safe with an open heart. And just also Mickey's candid, like honesty and just saying it like it is around when we go through experiences and energy just wants to flow and move, which normally it'll do. But what happens is either if something's really painful and we resist the experience of the pain, the energy has to go somewhere. So it's trying, so it turns into like mental noise or turns into like a lot of emotional disturbance. And if we're not willing to experience it, the only way energetically it can't disappear. So it lands up cycling around itself, and it's actually our resistance that's keeping it in that closed cycle. And it was turning everything on its head and upside down, that when something in our lives like triggers and we feel like an upset and a dissonance and something that's wanting to move, because it's just something before that was kept there and it actually just wants its chance to move. So God, I got this like wave of, like imagine if people, actors and actresses who go for auditions and then you get like a call back. So it's almost like when there's an incident that we resist feeling, that just craves wanting to express itself. Even the pain and the discomfort just wants to be expressed. It wants to have its moment in the limelight, in the spotlight. So when something happens that triggers it and you feel it, it's like this calling card for that one to come back to have its moment in the spotlight. And then there's our decision to actually allow that to happen, so that it can move and flow out, as opposed to us keeping it trapped and whirling around because of the resistance. And that because it was stored with pain, it's going to move and release with pain. But actually that the heart gets used to this like purification and healing process, and to actually get excited. Oh my God. And this just reminded me as well of like this wonderful couple who did like imago and facilitated lots of couples around the whole therapy. And it's really about how often it's people's greatest wounds that actually cause their mutual attraction. And that in the people that you find you're attracted to is ultimately the exact reasons you get annoyed with them later. But they actually just signposts of areas of healing. And this idea of running towards discomfort as as opposed to way, so beautiful, because there as well, it was that when there is like dissonance in the relationship and when there is frustration and irritation, it's not actually signs that you're potentially with the wrong person. It's actually more signs that they're like flashlights, like indicators, like when you have a car and it needs oil and the oil light starts flashing. It's not a problem. It's actually warning you of an area that needs help. So all these things are actually just warnings of areas, like indicators of areas that need. So it's to run towards them with actually like appreciation for the fact that it's showing you like the canary in the coal mine. You know, it's showing you that this is an area that needs attention and affection. Oh my God, how divine, how divine. And then also like this whole closing. So it's also the clinging. The other side is that when there's amazingly like positive, I know I'm using the word positive and negative, but just for like understanding in terms of communication, so uplifting experiences that we just want to live over and over and don't want to let it go. So that also creates this like enclosed cycle of energy instead of just letting it go, which is also problematic, because then if you've had such an amazing experience, if you think about like a particular restaurant, and if you're so attached to that first experience, how does any later experience stand a chance if it's got to be held up in comparison? Whereas if each one is just its new, fresh opportunity to express and be itself and be appreciated. And how on both sides we cause this like stuckness to the present, and that life then needs to compete. And it's like this analogy of the heart and the valve of the heart, that as there's more and more of the stuckness that accumulates, life is having to like penetrate through all of this and is trying to like vie for our attention, and how it distorts what we're experiencing. And such a powerful example was a couple of weeks ago on like an improv weekend. I was in like one of the scenes with a woman where we were three in the scene, and we were like a married couple and also with the ex-wife, but we all get on really, really well together. And this took the woman in my scene with me back to her divorce. And it so triggered like her samskara, not that this was like part of improv, but it just connected so much to Mickey's work where there'd been like unprocessed and unhealed stuff from there. So it brought it up so vividly that the scene even was battling to penetrate. And the guy in the scene actually at least 5 times said, "I love you." And when we were chatting about it afterwards, she said she didn't hear it once. Not once did she hear it. So it's like when these things get triggered, these pains and that just want to bloom like a flower. They just want to have their openness. They're bringing back all the vivid. So it's like creating this blur and distortion from the present. So she couldn't even hear, even though it physically was said, she didn't even hear it because of the intensity of everything that came back related to her divorce. So, yo. I know I said I had, just for me, this has just been so much like delicious stuff, like interwoven and interlinking. So we spoke about the open heart and the discernment and actually it being strong. And to be strong with an open heart, that it's about openness to all the experiences. And that also, my God, this whole double whammy, like never mind the issue, like what we cause for ourselves with resisting experiences or clinging on to experiences, but sometimes we can double whammy ourselves. So a friend of mine, a friend of hers, has immigrated to like the UK, and my friends met up with her on a trip, and it's a few months after her move. And she was like saying to my friend, "Oh my God, you must just so appreciate South Africa, and you must love all the things, and you must love every minute." And it's like, I just felt for me like there was such a like clinging to the memory of South Africa. And then there was also like this, all the stuff that's hard and challenging with the moves. I'm not taking away from any of it. It's just more like there was a real resisting for the current situation, plus a massive clinging to the past. And it's just, so that's a double whammy. So it's not about things not being hard or not wanting to connect and relive and appreciate stuff in the past, but it's just that difference of like really getting one's talons into it as opposed to letting it move and flow. And also around that with like news and good news and bad news, because a friend of mine had shared about what she labeled as like good news about her brother getting divorced. Not that but it's just there's like issues around alcoholism and sort of like unhealthy dynamics there. And it's just like, yeah, like just to be mindful of the language and the use of the good and bad. Because life just is life that's constantly unfolding, and it's all just this magnificent plot. And I'm so sorry if this is a repetition, but it just, my last little thing I'm going to share is also what came up for me was someone was sharing like some really intense stuff that she's going through. And I was saying that for me, sometimes what really helps is to imagine life just as, if I am repeating this, I swear I need these reminders as often as possible. And if you are hearing this like immediately after I've just shared it before, then hopefully you just find it valuable in it nonetheless, is that just like these amazing series movies, like iconic works of literature or film, they have complex characters, complex plots, like things that come out of left field that you never, ever would expect. Characters with you have huge compassion, ones you love to hate, you can't stand. Some that are, you think you hate, but then you go through things and all of a sudden your heartstrings are pulled. And that is what we love about it. And the more kind of complex it is, that's what creates this brilliance and this genius. And here in our lives, we ultimately get to live these amazing stories with such diversity and such a range of experience. So if we can bring that same appreciation that we have for these works of literature and film that take us on these amazing adventures and roller coasters that we love, and we'll rave to someone about it, something that's taken us up to the heights and that we've like sobbed and heaving sobbed, and we love it and we rave about it. And sometimes you won't even tell someone. You'll say, I can't even tell you a word. Just got to go see it. You just got to go see it. And what if we could bring that level of like energy into life and experience of life? But life, it's like you don't get to turn it off. You know, a series or a book, you get to close the book for a while. A series, you get to turn it off for a while. Life is carrying on every moment. So I am already well over my 10-minute share for today. So happy adventuring, precious soul, and along this whole mix, wow, here is to celebrating open-heartedness as a discernment and a strength in knowing that one can be safe with an open heart, which is really about just expanding and being open to the full range of this incredible human experience. I am going to end this off with something beautiful I heard from Mickey, that it's about enjoying life, but not necessarily defining what you need to enjoy life. Which means that there's an opportunity to enjoy all of it, just like we can enjoy all those ups and downs and roller coasters and unexpected twists and turns into all emotional landscapes of movie and film, that we may equally do so in our own lives. Mwah! Happy adventuring, precious soul.